proceed with our program in honor of our former colleague, Senator Suliga. There's a resolution on the clerk's desk. Will you please read the resolution?
Thank you, sir. The said resolution by Senate President Cody, Senator Lance, and all senators. Whereas the Senate of the State of New Jersey notes with sadness the death of Joseph S. Suliga, a highly esteemed former member of this House, who passed away on February 18, 2005 at the age of 47. And whereas after serving 4 terms as an outstanding member of the New Jersey General Assembly from 1994 to 2002, the Honorable Joseph S. Suliga served with distinction in the New Jersey Senate while representing the 22nd Legislative District. And whereas the Chief Financial Officer for the City of Linden for 17 years, Joseph S. Suliga also provided his expertise as a member of the Linden Board of Education, as a Linden City Councilman, and as a Union County freeholder. And whereas an array of awards and accolades bears witness to the praiseworthy legislative accomplishments of Joseph S. Suliga, who earned a bachelor's degree in political science from Kane College in 1979 and master's degrees in public administration and industrial relations from Kane College and Rutgers University in 1985 and 1993, respectively. And whereas his energetic style of leadership and abiding sense of commitment characterized Joseph S. Suliga's service to his fellow citizens in this state, and whereas Joseph S. Suliga was upheld in his life's endeavors by his wife Anne Marie, his father Joseph Sr., and his brothers Richard, Thomas, and Raymond. And whereas Joseph S. Suliga will be remembered for his selfless efforts, his uncommon degree of public spiritedness, and his exemplary dedication that served to improve the quality of life for the people of the City of Linden, Union County, and this state. Now therefore be it resolved by the Senate of the State of New Jersey that this House hereby honors the memory of Joseph S. Suliga and extends profound sympathy and sincere condolences to the members of his family. And be it further resolved that a duly authenticated copy of this resolution, signed by the President and attested by the Secretary, be transmitted to the family of Joseph S. Suliga.
Who speaks on the resolution? Senator Kenny? Senator?
Thank you, Mr. President. One only had to be at Joseph's funeral mass last month in Linden to get a sense of who he was. It was standing room only, and there was a universal sense of mourning, and at the same time, it was a celebration of the senator's life. I sat next to Joseph in the Budget Committee, Senate Budget Appropriations, for many years. We sat right next to each other, and I got to know him personally, and we also socialized together. He used to come up to Hoboken, and I would go out with him down in Linden. He had phenomenal energy. He had more balls in the air than anybody I knew, whether it be his Senate duties, his Linden duties, his business, his social life, his family, and he did them all very, very well. He was extremely smart. On the Budget Committee, he would understand the issues in a moment, whereas other of us would have to read briefing papers. Joe had a grasp of the budget, a grasp of numbers and fiscal issues, unlike anyone that I knew. He was very forthright and honest, very direct. What you saw is what you got. He was very humorous and extraordinarily generous. He didn't have a mean bone in his body, and he was very loyal to his friends and colleagues. Anne-Marie, we all feel the sadness for you and the Suliga family. But as you said so beautifully and eloquently at Joseph's Mass, Joe is about life, and he would want us all to embrace our lives, our loved ones, and to have meaning and purpose as he did during his time with you and his loved ones and his friends. God bless you, Anne-Marie, and to the Suligas.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Spiteri?
Thank you, Mr. President. It was once said that a brother may not be a friend, but a friend will always be a brother. Most of us here lost a former colleague, many lost a friend, and some of us lost much, much more. Joe Suliga was always there for his constituents, for his family, and for his friends. Those of us who knew him well knew him to be an extraordinarily devoted person, and I was the benefit of that devotion. Over the many years that I've been involved in politics, Joe was always a mentor to me, and we were always very close and good friends. He supported me during my Board of Education first election, when I ran for freeholder 3 times, and then ultimately when I took over his Senate seat, which I'm fortunate to be in here now. which was difficult on him, but that showed you the dynamics of the man, that he was more dedicated to his friends and to the cause than he ever was to himself. As a senator, Joe could be, shall we say, a demanding person, and his staff always knew that. He was a lightning quick study, especially with respect to fiscal issues and budget issues. The guy read the budget like some of us read the sports page. But there was also a tender side to this tough guy. Particularly, I think, was spelled out when he gave away his World Series Yankee tickets, which he coveted so greatly, to the Make-A-Wish Foundation so that people could go to that who were less fortunate. These are many of the things, and that's just one example of the generosity and to the giving nature of this man. He was also, as many of you know, he was the senator who sponsored a bill to mandate health insurers to provide wigs to women who were cancer victims. He predicted a long time ago that VLT machines would be part of making up of a budget shortfall. He couldn't understand why the rest of the Senate didn't realize that the funding of the city of Linden wasn't supposed to be the starting point with respect to all appropriations issues. But Joe had a magnetic personality. He could fill up a room. I remember recently I bought a short house down in Barnegat Township, less than a mile away from Joe's, and Joe stopped over, and within 5 minutes my whole family was sitting around Joe as he was telling stories, because that's just the kind of person that he was. People wanted to be around him. He was a fun guy, and he was a guy who really had a tremendous amount of energy and enthusiasm to whatever he did. And it was once written that enthusiasm is the most important thing in life. If that is true, then Joe had a full life, if not tragically short. But it was that same enthusiasm that he met every single day. When he came to the office in the city of Linden, or we came to these State House stairs, he met each and every day with tremendous enthusiasm. And I think anyone who met him knew that that's what he was all about. When I got to Trenton a little over a year ago, people would ask me, well, how's Joe Suliga doing? Because he had so many friends and so many people that really knew him. And I said, Joe is doing great, because that's the way Joe was. He was a guy that would do great no matter what the circumstances, and he'd really come to grips with where he was in life and was doing fantastic. In politics, particularly, proteges and mentors sometimes, as we all know, can become rivals in politics. But I'm fortunate to say that in our particular situation, that never came to be. Joe was the kind of person that built the organization from the ground up and embraced people that wanted to do better for their community, never considering the fact that there could be a rivalry in the future, and that never came to come to fruition for him, and he was rewarded greatly for those things that he did. No one in the world of politics ever did more for me in my life, and for that, I will never forget Joe Suliga. I am better for knowing him. We're all better for knowing him, and I think the whole state of New Jersey is better off for knowing him. To Anne Marie Suliga, Pokolsky, and to his entire family, my regrets and my warmest thoughts in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Kane?
Thank you, Mr. President. I came to know Joe through a couple of different facets. Sharing Union County with him and with Senator Lesniak, what I could recognize from Joe was not only the passion that he brought to all of his duties, but also to Union County. And he was always able to separate the urgent from the important. And he was always able to do that, whether it was doing his homework on the budget committee and the things that he did there to really burrow into the budget and bring out the 2 or 3 things that frequently people thought better left not known if you were in the majority. My understanding was he was always able to do that and wrap it and bring the story around, bring the issues to bear that were so important, need to be brought out. But then he brought so much more. I thought he was good for his word. When you were able to work with him and understand the issues that he felt so passionately about, whether it be on the budget committee, whether it be on issues that were important to Union County, he was always able to say, this is important and this is why it's important. And that type of public servant is vital. And while I didn't know him for as long as so many here today did, it was an honor and a privilege to share a little bit of the responsibility in representing not only constituents throughout the state on the Budget and Appropriations Committee with him, but in sharing that responsibility in representing Union County with Joe Suliga and Senator Lesniak.
Thank you, Senator Kane. Senator Lance? Followed by Senator Lesniak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Joe Suliga was a hail fellow, well met. But he was much more than that. He was an excellent legislator. He served for 4 terms in the Assembly, 8 years. And in all 4 of those terms, he served on the committee in the Assembly dealing with budgetary matters. The shape of the table for the Assembly Committee is similar to the shape of the table for the Senate Committee. It is an inverted U. And he sat across from me for those 8 years on the committee in the Assembly dealing with the budget, and also for 2 years here in the Senate on the same committee. And he looked me straight in the eye, Anne Marie, on many an occasion to tell me whether I was doing the right thing or not the right thing. During his time in the Assembly, the Democratic Party was in the minority. And when he came to the Senate, the Democratic Party was in the co-majority. Serving in the budget process, when one is in the minority, is very difficult. And it takes great tenacity to serve your district well, particularly when you are in the minority. And he served his district extremely well. But more important than his district, he of course served the people of Union County and the people of the entire state. Joe and his colleague from Union County, Richard Bagger, came here to the same day here to the Senate. I was privileged to come to the Senate from the Assembly that same day, as were other colleagues, Senator Buono, Senator Gill, and Senator Smith, all of us veterans of the Assembly. The class, if you will, of 2002, based upon the 2001 election here in the Senate. And I suspect that we have a bond together, those of us who came here from the Assembly on that day in 2002. John Marquand, the great novelist of the mid-20th century, said that the lives of the people in a small town cross and recross continually. And I would imagine that that is true in Linden, a place I do not know well, but certainly a place where I was able to be with your family at the time of Joe's passing. And if it is true that the lives of the people in a small town cross and recross continually, certainly that was true of Joe in Linden, based upon marvelous public service, beginning at the age of 19 on a school board. Who among us at age 19 was interested in elected office? I can't imagine there's another member of the legislature in that capacity. The age of 19, serving in public office. And so we bid farewell today to a hail fellow, well met. But much more important than that, we bid farewell to an excellent legislator, the people of Linden, for the people of his legislative district, for the people of Union County, and for the people of New Jersey. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Lance. Senator Lesniak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to commend Anne Marie, first of all. Anne Marie, for the courage and dignity and honor that you have displayed throughout this very difficult time, from hosting the viewing at your home for Joe, where so many thousands of his friends paid their last respects, to the inspiring eulogy you gave at the funeral service, and to continuing the charity work that you and Joe had started, and the event just 1 week after his burial. You have inspired us all in the way you've handled this situation and continuing Joe's work. As Joe Bodick and John Wolrad know, Joe Suliga had thousands of friends. And what was different about Joe, what was special about Joe, is every single one of his friends, whether they were the governor of the state of New Jersey or a Democratic committee person from the 7th Ward, 3rd District in Linden, he treated them the same. He treated every person he knew with dignity and respect. He would always remind me, Ray, don't forget about the little people. Don't forget the little people. You know, in this day of high-tech campaigns and TV and direct mail, you know, it's so easy to forget about little people. Joe Suliga never forgot about the little people. The people who supported him when he first ran for office as a 19-year-old for the Board of Ed, he never forgot those people. The big event for him every year was the $25 ticket fundraiser he had for the little people. Can you imagine any one of us having a $25 ticket? What's the waste of time, right? Not for Joe Suliga, because every single person there participated in the work that he was doing on behalf of the people of the state of New Jersey. One thing I didn't know as well about Joe, I want to elaborate a little bit about what Senator Suliga said with regard to the many random acts of kindness that Joe did throughout his life. Judge Daniel, in his eulogy at Anne Marie and Joe's home, talked about when Joe was actually in line for the World Series and engaged the people in front of him in a conversation, as he would with so many people and so many of us. And he found out that this little boy was granting one of his last wishes to see Derek Jeter, now his hero. But Joe's tickets were right by the dugout where Derek Jeter would be right there after every inning, and this young boy and his sponsor tickets were up in the third deck. And Joe turned to Judge Daniel and said, "Give me your ticket. We're trading up." He says, "What do you mean we're trading up?" Just give me your ticket. He gave this kid the 2 tickets so he could be there to see Derek Jeter close up, and Joe and Judge Daniel were up in the upper deck. And I am certain that today, this little boy is probably thanking Joe right now in heaven, where they both are. And I'm also certain that there are 1,000 people waiting in line to do the same. Anne-Marie, God bless you. We will miss Joe, and we will never forget him. Thank you.
Senator Kavanaugh?
First of all, to the Suliga family, I haven't had the opportunity to meet you, but Joe is an individual who I first met when I was chair of the Appropriations Committee, and he became argumentative. And I said, you can't argue with the Irish. He said, oh, we're going to do it this way. So what we did is got a clock, and a time clock, and we set it, and that was the length of time each member had to speak. Took a few months, but Joe was very pleased, and he said, if I ever get to be chairman, I'm going to take that clock. That's the greatest thing that ever happened. Well, he's an individual that I won't forget. I first heard of Joe's death from an employee in Linden who lives a block from me in Somerville. And he knocked on the front door. I said, hi, John, what do you? And I looked up and he had tears in his eyes. And he said, your friend Joe Suliga died. So here's a person that remembered Joe, and he and I had spoken together about him. And he was with awe and tears that he lost a boss in London. I think that if you look, you find it appropriate, he brings it up to the talk about the World Series ticket. Well, back in '99, as most of you know, I was befallen by an aneurysm, and it's been a tough road. I'll get back. But when I was spending my year in the hospital, Joe called. He said, Ralph, how you doing? I said, who's this? He said, Joe Suliga. I said, hey, how are you? He said, good. I'm just wondering, how are you? And I looked, people that you remember, the president of the Senate, they used to have one of his guys give me a hamburger milkshake once a week. It was super. You remember those things and the quality of life all that we can achieve. And God bless you, Joe, and God bless the Suliga family.
Senator Kavanaugh was black and white milkshake, if I remember correctly. Just let me say, Anne Marie, thank you ever so much for coming down here today. I'll tell you a story about Joe. When Joe first ran for the Senate, he called me in, I think it was maybe mid-September. His consultant was my consultant, his pollster was my pollster, and the poll came back, and Joe was up 6. He said, "Can I stop at your house tonight?" I said, "Sure." So he says, I really need money from the Senate PAC. The Republicans are pouring a lot of money into this guy. He's an Olympic gold medal winner. It's going to be a tough race. I said, "Joe, your political consultant says you're going to win. So does the pollster." "John, I really need the money, Dick." So I gave him money. So, of course, 2 weeks later, he calls me again and says, same pitch. Republicans are pouring a lot of money in this. I need the money, I need the money, I need the money. So I give him some more money. So then we do a poll. And it's mid-October, and he's up 15 points. I don't hear from him, but the next morning, I show up to work at my district office, and he's there. And he starts to open his mouth, and I said to him, "Joe, the answer is no." I tell you the God honest truth, he turned around and without saying a word, got in his car and left. Joe figured, let me give it a shot. And he accepted the correct answer. But without question, Joe was one of life's greatest characters. He's a person you'll never forget. And whether you agree with him or didn't agree with him, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you wanted him around you. You wanted to go to dinner with him and enjoy his company. And he was, I'll tell you what, beyond being a character, his mind was as good as anyone I've ever seen down here. And let me say this, if you were in a fight, you would want Joe Suliga next to you. If you were in a foxhole, you would have wanted Joe Suliga next to you. That's what kind of man he was, without question. He was a man's man. And we have nothing but the fondest of memories of your husband like you do. And thank you again for all the class and dignity you've shown through an incredible tragedy and an incredible loss for you and all of Joe's loved ones. God bless you. Thank you very much. Now, if we all could just rise and give Joe a standing ovation. Thank you, Emily. If you don't mind taking a picture with me. We're going to give Joe's wife the floor for a moment or two. Thank you, Anne-Marie. Go ahead.
Senate President Cody, honorable state legislators, I want to express my deep appreciation to all who have offered comfort and condolence and who have come together today to remember Joseph. Joe Suliga dedicated his entire adult life to the people of Linden, the County of Union, and the people of this great state. He joined the ranks of this distinguished body in 2002. Doing so gave him great sense of pride and accomplishment. My husband was loving, dedicated, and passionate about public service. Given a cause or an issue that he really believed in, he could be ferocious in his defense of that issue. You should have been in my house when we debated parental notification. Joe's passion for public service was recognized early on by his supporters when he ran for the Linden Council back in 1986. In fact, his campaign slogan was "Joe Suliga, a fighter in your corner." Joe did not hold back a punch, but he knew when to take the gloves off. And more importantly, he was skilled at building relationships so that the next battle could perhaps be less troublesome. These are truly the characteristics of an extraordinary individual. And this is how I would like you to remember Joe as well. Never holding back a punch. To me, that means honest, genuine, and tough. Knowing when to take the gloves off meant smart, compassionate, and skilled at building relationships tells me that he was respectful of others, generous, a great negotiator, and fun-loving. Joseph truly enjoyed serving with all of you. Thank you for celebrating his life with me today. May God bless you and keep you safe. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much. Resolutions on the clerk's desk?